biggest takeaway for me is what a difference a week makes, right? Because we were sitting here a week ago and talking about the sky has fallen for the Mets right after that lackluster series in Pittsburgh, which was about as bad as you could possibly play. And then you're thinking, boy, the injuries one after another. I mean, how are things going to change for this baseball team? And then they come into this series, or before that, they play the Milwaukee Brewers, lose the first game of that doubleheader. You're facing Mazeroski in the game 2, and you're like, is this going to turn around? It did. They carried it over to the Subway Series. And what was amazing about that, guys, you look at the pitching matchups on paper before that series. I mean, Justin Hangeman, I mean, Frankie Montas, who has not exactly set the world on fire, a bullpen game on Sunday. For them to take 2 or 3 when the Yankees had their 2 best pitchers going, I think says a lot about the resiliency of this club.
100%. And it also says to me about another point that you made, Dan, which is what a difference a week makes and just the perspective checks that the game of baseball is constantly giving us about taking too much meaning out of a particular moment. When the Yankees were struggling on Saturday, making some bad defensive plays and not looking good, I thought back to the Subway Series at Citi Field last year when Jahmai Jones led off a game against the Mets, and J.D. Davis was the cleanup hitter. And it was like, how could this $300 million team have, probably you said it,
I love
have J.D. Davis batting cleanup and da-da-da. It was like at that point, not only should Cashman needed to be fired, but Hal needed to go to prison and Boone needed to go to Siberia, and it was like, this can't happen. Yankees end up in the World Series. What I'm saying is the Subway World Series that I was selfishly hoping for because it would be fun to cover at the beginning of the season is not off by any stretch. The Subway Series, the 6 games are pretty even. Both teams are right up there in the conversation with the best of their league. I know that's harder to imagine with the Yankees right now because of the week that they're coming off of, but look at what you just said about where the Mets are at 5 days ago. So these things go in cycles. Both teams are fine. I didn't see anything from either team that would suggest to me that they're not on track.
Yeah, if anything, more encouraged by the Mets' performance, according to what I thought was going to happen going in. To your point, with the pitching lined up the way that it was, depleted. Even using Diaz and Stanek in the last 2 games in Milwaukee, they weren't available the first game against the Yankees. So the fact the Mets were able to beat the Yankees 2 out of 3, very impressive.
And if I, real quick, on Mendoza managing, the way he used it, you could definitely talk about using Diaz with a 6-run lead on Saturday, but the fact was, it was like, this is the game to put your foot on the throat and keep it there. Tomorrow's Max Fried versus the bullpen. Let's go. And Diaz, you knew he was going to obviously not give up 6 runs.
Right.
So that's where they clinched the series. I like the managing there.
The bat's the biggest thing here of the weekend. Liz, how was the Mets offense able to break out against the Yanks?
So I think that, everybody really performed their role, especially, look at the game yesterday. We're in the 6th inning. We had a couple pinch hitters. Mauricio, I mean, I can't give him enough credit for missing all of last year. And then this year he comes in and he's an effective pinch hitter. I mean, that's crazy for a young player. But what's cool, too, is that because of the roster construction right now, what you're able to do is have those pinch hitters in the middle, in the middle of the game. You can have them come in, and then defensively, you have enough versatility in order to replace those positions and not lose anything defensively. It's not like you're putting in, the last guy on your bench to come in after a pinch hit. McNeil can shift, Mauricio can shift. All these guys are switching around and filling those positions defensively, so that is a huge tool to be able to use them offensively and defensively when the time calls for it.
Yeah, I think it's easy to forget now, but this is how the Mets were built. They were built to score a lot of runs. The preseason talk was, oh, look at this lineup. It's the best compared to since 2006. And then throughout the course of the year, it's been the pitching that's carried them. They needed the bats to get going against the Yanks, and they did just that. Subway Series isn't what it used to be here. We're a long way from Derek Jeter constantly jabbing the Mets. Current Yankees captain had nothing but nice things to say about this version of the Mets. Andy, what'd you make of those comments from Aaron Judge?
There's a lot to unpack here, and it's all good for the Mets. It was our own Chelsea Sherrod who asked Judge the question what he thought of the Mets after the Subway Series. Great question. She got a great answer. Judge said exactly, the Mets are the Mets. Now, that is a phrase that would have meant a lot of different things.
That could be 30 years ago. Yeah, that's right.
There could have been expletives in there. There could have been, take that a lot of different ways. So the fact, to me, that's very meaningful. When Judge says the Mets are the Mets, he means it's self-evident that the Mets are really freaking good. Hey, look, the Mets are the Mets. They're a great team. That's what he went on to say. They're a great ball club. And then he said it starts with their manager, which is a nice little compliment, of course, for a guy that had been the bench coach on Judge's team. He went on to say how Mendoza was a guy who really got his players going and motivated and whatnot. But to me, the biggest takeaway there was, as I said, when you say the Mets are the Mets, and that means they're great, that tells you how they've risen in the estimation of the rest of the league since Jeter was going, what do I care? It's the freaking Mets.
Right.
There's a big difference.
Yeah, a long way from those days, and isn't it sweet?